Hello and welcome to Let's Talk EI, Conversations with Jacqueline A. Hines. Today my guest is Vanessa Vallely, OBE, MD and founder of WeAreTheCity, but she's actually more than that. So I'm going to ask Vanessa to actually tell you all about who she is, what she stands for, and all the wonderful things she's doing. Hi, Vanessa.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for agreeing.
So, Vanessa Vallely, what can I tell you about me? Started in the city when I was 16, didn't do very well at school, came out of Hackney, very proud of that, but had a lot of passion, a lot of ambition. So went and got on the bus, managed to get a job in the city at NatWest, lost that job after a few months. Down to I think a little bit of my attitude was kind of, the problem. But, at 16, no one gives you a book and tells you how the world of work works. Always had kind of this big dream to have a big job one day. So kind of went through my career always putting my hand up for work that no one else wanted to do. So offering to help people, looking for opportunities, taking a few risks. Sometimes they paid off, other times they didn't. I was lucky to come under the sponsorship of some amazing men, because all the bosses were men back in those days.
Right.
It kind of gave me some opportunities to shine and take on things that I didn't actually think I could do myself, but managed to kind of learn asking people. And that led to nine different banks that I worked for. Probably about 25 different positions, but I ended up in the world of technology, which is ironic considering I got an F grade in technology, but ended up in the field of tech. Started off in quite more technical roles, done a bit of programming in my day, was doing some training, some desktop support, playing around, tinkering around the back of PCs. But throughout my career, probably the good 10 to 15 years went into more the leadership kind of management side. Done a little bit of stint as a project manager, working in a PMO, program director, and then went into kind of more chief of staff, chief operating officer roles, but again on the tech side, more kind of in investment management. But about 10 years ago, I was just getting very frustrated that whenever I looked around the leadership table, there was just women. Just men. Where were the women? And also looking at the women in my organisation, who was going to bring them on? How would they ever get into that room? Because there was nothing in place. So bear in mind, I say this was around 2008, so gender was on no one's agenda. I don't even think diversity was a thing people were talking about. And bear in mind, in my world, this was financial crisis, right? So personal development of anyone, we were lucky if we still had tea and coffee in the kitchen at that particular point. So decided to set up a website. Really consequence of moaning at my husband. There wasn't one website for me, a working woman. I spent 12 hours a day in the city. We set up what was a not-for-profit hobby off the side of my desk to fill this website with all the things that were going on for women where they could develop themselves. Right. So it kind of built up slowly over time. We invested our savings in any events, had no clue about sponsorship or getting corporates to help us at the time. So funded it ourselves. And if I'm honest, my love for that got bigger and bigger and bigger. So, and my love for my day job got less and less and less. Right. So about 5 years ago, I think at that time, WeAreTheCity had a community of about 40,000 women. But I took a big jump and decided to go and work on WeAreTheCity full time. So I built out a suite of services and products that I felt would help corporates to attract, retain and develop their female talent, but also to make WeAreTheCity more optimised. So not just featuring news stories, we've got the women's networks on there, we've got events people can attend, but because I'm a very collaborative individual and WeAreTheCity's like that, I wanted it to be a place where we promote what everyone is doing, not just us. So today we do 2 sets of awards. We have Rising Stars and Tech Women. We have 2 conferences, a leadership conference, a tech conference. We run quarterly events. We have around 120,000 women that we support. We look after 120 different clients. We've got a separate site now purely for women in tech, called WeAreTechWomen.com. So it's been built over 5 years, a labour of love. It's not been easy, but we've had a support of a lot of organisations around us that help us to do what we do, and support of a lot of individuals. You don't kind of get places on your own, so they believe in what we do. And again, not just a commercial organisation, there's a lot of social good in kind of what we do as well. So they know that if they sponsor something of ours or they help us to do something, that we're gonna put some of that back in some way by paying it forward and stuff. So I spend half of my life running WeAreTheCity. I spend the other half speaking in corporates. Wrote the book Hills of Steel. I'm often talking in schools. I sit on a few charity boards. Other than that, married, 2 kids and 2 dogs.
Thank you so much.
Cats. I forgot the cats.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see the passion in what you do, and you know the conversation that we've had prior to this. There are a lot of nuggets of knowledge and experience in your passion to drive forward. You know, the pipeline for future female leaders and its importance. You know, so what can individuals do for themselves to get on that route?
So I think, you know, from a career perspective, how individuals can drive their own careers. I'm a true believer that it's not just your boss's responsibility to do that. You can ask for things too. And sometimes, you know, if you get a no, you just keep asking again, or you ask a different person. So I think, you know, fundamentally building your network is really important. To have people around you you can learn from, informal mentors, you know, places that you can go to meet new people. I'm a true believer in giving before you receive as well. So I think you build relationships that way. So I think there's a lot more you can do. Back in my day, again, there was a sprinkling of women's networks that you could go to, and you might always not felt like you fitted there, or you know, or you'd go to events and everyone would look the same, so you had the same perspectives and group think. Whereas today, I mean, there's 2,000 women's networks in London alone. So if you really want to find or hone a particular skill or learn something new, there's so much out there now. There's so much on the internet, which again wasn't around when I started work. So there's so much you can do, but it's finding that motivation. I think sometimes people struggle with around, we're trying to balance work, life, and how do we fit in this Uber plan to kind of go and stretch our careers, you know, and what if we're working for an organisation or for individuals that don't want to support that journey for whatever reason. So that's kind of where it gets tough.
Right, okay, brilliant. So what do you think companies can do really to support their pipeline? Because a lot of it is being able to sort of like be progressive, be inclusive, but also retain their key staff. Because when you're growing up in an organization, what they don't want is for them to get to a point where they feel undervalued and then just walk through the door. So what do you think organizations can do?
I think one of the hardest things for organizations is the retention of talent. The attraction piece, you know, they can put on a good show, they can dangle a good salary, and they can, you know, promise the earth. But when you get to an organisation and you get to see its real culture and you get to see what it's really like, that's when, you know, after a couple of years, as you particularly put it, you know, women they vote with their feet, right? But I mean, we've done focus groups at WeAreTheCity that says that it takes a woman a lot longer to leave a job than it would a man, you know, because there is more things perhaps to consider when we're leaving. When we're going to the firm, there are certain cultural things that are perhaps more important to us, you know, and I'm not going to generalise for every woman, but this is kind of what we found when we spoke to a number of people. But I think what firms do, I think it's just about equal opportunities for exposure. To women, because sometimes we're not in the same rooms, so those opportunities get missed, like, you know, or there's not a balance in the boardroom or where decisions are made between men and women, you know. So it's getting us more to there, and there's loads of things that can be done if you aspire to a job, you know. So people do a lot of stuff around mentoring and like sponsorship, but I'm a big fan of job shadowing. Let me come and watch what you do for a day, you know, because I may aspire to a particular job, but when I've actually seen it in real life, I may not want that job. So I think about the educational piece of what these different roles look like. I think there is an element of mentorship in there as well, but the sponsorship is equally important. So who are the advocates in the organisation that are opening doors of opportunity for these women in rooms that they're not currently in? So I think it's visibility, I think is important within that. I think it's having your allies, you know, people that are going to put you forward for things. I mean, I think how lucky I was having 3 gentlemen that put me forward for things that they believed I could do, as I said earlier on, long before even I believed it. So it's having that vision and giving someone that opportunity to shine by putting them in that room. So I think there's a lot, and don't get me wrong, we see at WeAreTheCity, we see holistically a lot of what companies are doing, and they are doing stuff. Whether or not that stuff is having an impact remains to be seen, because it's a long journey. If you're taking someone who's at a junior side of their career into a more senior role, that don't happen in 2 to 3 years. There's experience to be gained. There's a much wider kind of journey to get into those decision-making roles. But I think if they work backwards and said, what does that look like, and what can we put in place and match, you know, in order to give that experience, then perhaps we'll cut the length of that journey back.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, it sounds like a lot more bite-sized leadership from a very early stage.
Yeah, I believe so.
Needs to happen. That's great in the organisations. Let's talk about the government. What do you think the government could do?
I think definitely there's something to be done around childcare for women. I was watching a program on the news this morning, and they was talking about the fact that they was asking whether women should be paid to stay at home by the government to look after their kids, and I think they would earn something like £13 an hour. They worked it out as to what the hourly rate is. And there was this whole debate, you know, around whether or not it's our jobs to bring up our children, or whether we should get funded for it, and how will people feel that don't have children. I think the government has a very rich part to play. I think childcare is the biggest barrier for women that want to work. You know, the cost of it is extortionate. You know, even when I was in my full-time career, I think it was around £1,800 at one point for both my kids. You know, if you look at a normal salary, if you even earn that, by the time you've got travelled or commuted, the cost of lunches in London, your suits to go to work, it's not worth it. So I think there's something, and although they've upped the amount of childcare that women get over the, you know, allowances and hours and stuff over the years, it's not enough. It's certainly not enough. So don't get me wrong, shared parental leave has kind of helped if we can get the men to take it. But I do think the government has a major part to play in what I see is a huge talent pool that is currently being untapped.
Yeah, and I totally concur with what you said. I mean, being a mother myself and growing up in the corporate world myself, talk about childcare fees. It's almost, you know, unthinkable.
Working, right?
Yeah.
It was all about presenteeism. So
that's it.
That's on the table from a company perspective, that they're seeing that we work in global companies and flexibility is key. And you can do it. I mean, I run a very small company, but virtually all the people that work for me work flexibly at some particular point, or they work from home on certain days or stuff like that, because you get the best out of your employees, because they feel they get to balance their lives as well. So it can be done. So I don't understand in big firms why they find it so different, but that is changing.
Yeah, it is changing. No, that's an interesting topic, and I think we could delve into that a little bit more and peel back some layers. You know, so okay, so if we kind of fast forward the next couple of decades, do you think we will see more women in senior leadership roles? I'm talking from the board, C-suite down.
I think we will see more women. Will we see the intersectionality of women? That's the bit that kind of interests me, because, you know, there's some wonderful, just after we set up in 2008, 2010, Helen Morrissey formed the 30% Club, you know, and they've been doing some great stuff around, you know, even the government saying we need 30% of women on boards. But I think it's not just about women, it's about women from different backgrounds. And I think there's a bit of a gap still there for me. But I think, will we see more women in leadership positions? I definitely think we will. If you look at the World Economic Forum, you know, some of those stats, I mean, various different ones that come from different organisations, parity for women in terms of that is like 100 years away. You know, we might as well just shut the laptop, pack up shop, go home. You know, believe stuff like that. But I think there are so many little organisations that are pushing this agenda, and never in the last couple of years has the voice of women been heard. You know, whether it's women's rights, whether it's women in the corporate space, whether it's, you know, young girls, and we have a massive voice and a platform. Don't get me wrong, these are big oil tankers that will take years and years to move. But I do think in 20 years' time, the landscape will look a lot different. Will I see parity in my lifetime? I very much doubt it, but I do hope that one day I can kind of look back on the things that like when I talk to my kids, for example, one of my daughters doing politics in school and feminism and stuff like that. And she's just shocked, you know, when you say to that women couldn't vote and stuff, she's like, oh my God, you know, and she, you know, she finds it hard to believe. I really hope that in 20 or 30 years time, some of the things that we experience now, that my daughter's kids will be going, really? Do you see what I mean? Like some of that stuff has gone away. And I think there is a much more collaborative effort to make things different for women, so that we have parity and that we're on an equal playing field with our parts. But we need the men on that journey as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's there's enough room on the platform for everyone, as I keep saying. And I think that if we've got the right kind of platforms, networks, tables, even if there aren't any seats there, we encourage the women, young women, the aspiring leaders, the ones that are getting their sort of like their juices flowing in terms of which direction shall I go, get them to get their own chairs as well, so that even if there isn't a chair there, they bring it to the table. You know, so for me,
this is what we see. We see so many different organisations, individuals pushing.
Yeah.
Having the guts to call stuff out. Right? So, you know, around things that haven't been addressed and how we can potentially do that. And then you have other people with similar ideas and they join together, and you may not solve it overnight, but yeah, I would like to think, you know, in generations to come, things will be different. I look back, even now, if I go back 2 decades to when I was in the world of work, it seems like we've come a long way. Although when you look at it holistically on a global perspective, have we come a long way for women? No. You know, but we're making the right strides. And I suppose from someone who tries to be very positive, even a small step is a step, right? Oh,
absolutely. It's a step of progress nonetheless. Vanessa, thank you very much. What encouragement and advice can you give our women leaders, aspiring women leaders, the young girls that are coming up doing their A-levels, O-levels, and even the ones in primary school, because they're never too young?
I think the biggest kind of piece of advice, and I was at school yesterday and I told the girls the same thing, is everyone has opinions of what you will achieve in life, right? And sometimes people have those opinions because they haven't got the gumption to go out and live their own dreams, right? But it's very easy for someone to tell you what you will never be, what you can't achieve and stuff. It's very easy for those words to roll out of someone's mouth without any fault for the consequences. And sometimes we take those opinions and we take them inside and we grow them as seeds and they become big things. So I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give is don't let someone else define what you will be, because I think only you can define that. And if you focus and you really want something and you surround yourself with the right people and you get your head down and you learn the right stuff and you take a few risks and you put your hands up for opportunities, then the world's your oyster, right? So, and again, nowadays there are, even if so for example, when I started, it was more challenging circumstances, so I didn't have access to some of these things. You know, because of my home kind of set up or my mum and dad's network or whatever. There are so many different organisations now that are helping young kids in particular to gain those networks and to gain those advocates and to kind of help fill those gaps that they might not have. So don't let anyone define you. That would be it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Oh my goodness, those are some pearls of wisdom and little nuggets that individuals that are really interested. They can see the exit, but they can't see the pathway. Follow these little nuggets and join the network. Speak to the people that are important. Today, thank you very much, Vanessa. You've been listening to Jacqueline Hines having a conversation with Vanessa Vallely, OBE, MD and founder of WeAreTheCity. Tune in for other conversations I'll be having in the future. Thank you.